Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
It's like poetry, isn't it? It's just touch the hand of love. It's a metaphor. What we teach in Unity is you never walk alone. There is a spirit of infinite power and grace and intelligence and love that is not only walking beside us, we're part of it. And sometimes we still need a hand to hold, don't we? So I want us to be reminded that every name or attribute we give to God, it's a metaphor. How do you contain the infinite in a name? But how beautiful it is to just feel what it's like to touch the hand of love. I'm so grateful for this teaching of oneness and possibility. It's really transformed my life, and we continue to open ourselves to it. That's why we gather on Sunday mornings. Speaking of Sunday morning, it was a typical house, and we hear, "Emily, wake up, we've got to go to church." Silence. "Emily, you have got to get up and get ready. We have to go to church." "I don't want to go to church. It's boring. It's the same old boring music and the same old boring people and the same old boring sermon. Why do I have to go to church?" "Because, Emily, you're the pastor." I don't recognize any part of that. I don't know what you're talking about. Today's message is called The Light of the World. There are two places in the Gospels, in the canonical Gospels, or in what we call the Christian Bible, where Jesus used this phrase. First, in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, verse 12. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And you know, I think that's an easy one for us to grasp, that an enlightened master like Jesus, someone who was so aware of his connection with the infinite that he could say, "Rise and walk," and people rose and walked. That's powerful. And we can look to those people like the Buddha and Muhammad, and we can see these people who are so connected, and we say, yes, they are the light of the world. Mother Teresa, she's the light of the world. I can see it there, but then that's not the only place Jesus used this phrase. This is in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 14 through 16. And I want to say, too, that of all of the evidence that we have of who this man Jesus of Nazareth was and what he taught, those passages, Matthew 5, 6, and 7, are considered to be the most true to what he actually taught. And so this, I believe, Jesus, saying it in a different language than we would speak, but stood before his disciples and he said these words, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. They put it on a stand instead, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." And that is a little harder to grasp. Yeah, Jesus, of course, light of the world, brilliant, whole being who spoke with such power and connection, and yet you and me, light of the world, sometimes we have trouble even paying our bills on time. How are we going to be the light of the world? I still haven't healed my relationship with my mother, or I still haven't lost the 20 pounds I need to. How can I be the light of the world? I am so imperfect. And yet this is the message that Jesus of Nazareth spoke. Don't you know? You are the light of the world. Jesus would have spoken in Aramaic, but the language wasn't written, and so Greek was the language that people spoke, and the word for light is phos. There's a particular quality about this word that I think is helpful for us to know what exactly Jesus was getting at here. This word phos has to do with an emitting of light. Sometimes it's talked about there are rays of light. It's not just you can see the light, but the light is doing something. It's shining. He said, you are that. You are shining. Your essence, this quality of light is coming from you. And then he goes on to say, and you don't want to hide that. You shine it so that others can see. Metaphysically, what this light represents is truth. The absolute reality of ultimate being, of God, of spirit, of oneness. This is light. It's who and what we are. We are birthless, deathless, changeless beings who are pure spirit, and yet we have come into incarnation in what is called the world. Cosmos. And that's exactly how Jesus would have said it, I'm sure. This word means world, the earth. And metaphysically, what it means is it's our shared, conditioned reality. The light is the truth, spiritual truth of who we are, ultimate reality. The world is our shared, conditioned reality. Because I don't know if you've noticed, but there's some people down here that forgot they were the light. Amen? Acting foolish. Doing things that have nothing whatsoever to do with the spiritual truth. At least that's my judgment. But wait, that's one of the things I'm not supposed to do if I'm shining a light. Forgot about that. And so this is a tall order, that we are to bring the ultimate light of God's reality to this mess. How does that even work? I mean, it sounds great. I'm shining the light of this little light of mine. It sounds great. But what does that mean? What does that look like? You're practical people in Unity. I'm going to give you some homework this week. You ready? There are 3 things that I'm going to ask you to do to be the light of the world. I'm going to ask you to be kind. I'm going to ask you to be generous, and I'm going to ask you to be cheerfully expectant. Pregnant with possibility? All right, thank you. We'll take that. Let me break this down for you. Kindness and generosity are very much similar. They are hand in hand. I'm breaking them apart into 2 different things for this topic, for this sermon. Of course, I like a 3-point talk, and I need to give you 2 of them. So here we go. Kindness it's both an attitude and a behavior based on spiritual truth of love. Kindness is when, because you know that you can do this. You can do the right thing, but if you do it with no love in your heart, it doesn't quite land, does it? And you can feel very loving, but if it doesn't show up in your actions, that's not quite kind, is it? So it's both. It is an attitude of alignment with love, and it's acting from that. You have the opportunity this week to go to graduate school for kindness. It's called the 610 Freeway. 59 will work in a pinch, the Beltway, I-10, all great places for you to step into a learning experience of how to be kind. Because here's what happens to me, maybe to you. I'm going along shining because I'm the light of the world. And somebody cuts me off with no turn signal. And my response is what? I won't tell you, because here's the thing. I'll just say, and John will attest to this, I reserve the right to use all words when necessary. So, amen. Thank you for that. The natural response to unkindness is to be unkind. We get defended, We'll get aggressive right back. That's what the natural, earthly, conditioned reality response is, always to respond in kind, which is unkind. But if we're going to be the light of the world, we're asked to do something different. But this is not an unnatural response. It's a deeper response. It's coming from the spiritual truth, the thing that lies beneath all of our hurt and fear and resentment and anger. There is this place that knows I cannot be harmed. And if I can tap into that, then I can offer kindness no matter what comes to me. So kindness is the first way that I'm going to, and it's your homework and you will be graded. The law is exacting. So I'm talking about the law of cause and effect. But if you are willing to step into being the light of the world in a tangible, real way, it's to practice kindness at every opportunity that you remember, is to step into a loving behavior. What would the kind thing to do here be? And do that. The second quality, or the second way that I believe that we can step into shining the light of the world, is to be generous. And as I said, these two words go together, but for today's message, I really want to talk about the givingness of light, of shining. That if we are to be generous, we are to give. But we are not to give from an empty cup. This is really important. We don't give from an empty cup. We have to, as they say in the airplane, you put the mask over your own face first. You have to attend to your own spiritual fitness. Practice prayer and meditation, enough rest. You have to do these things so that when you are being generous, you're giving from the overflow. Michael Beckwith does a whole teaching on living from the overflow. That's where generosity comes from, is when we are so connected to God, we are so practiced in our meditation and our prayer that we feel so full that the most natural thing in the world is to give. And there are many ways you can be generous, not just in money, although we do not shy away from teaching generosity around our financial good. It is a way of connecting to the flow of giving and receiving. If you want to be blessed, you bless. And I'm not telling you that that's what we're focusing on today, but I do expect a very luminous offering at the end of today's message. That we are practicing our generosity as we are shining our light. But there are other ways that we can be generous. We can be generous in our attention. We can really pay attention to those people in our lives. And here's the thing, too. When it says you are the light of the world, you're not going to shine for all 7 billion of them because you're not going to probably meet them. It's just the ones whose orbit you are moving in. That's where you are to shine. And give your attention. Children particularly will tell you when they need your attention. And to be generous in the way you give your attention. You can be generous in the way you give your talents. That's a great thing about church, man. It's a great thing about spiritual community. We give you opportunities so you can give what you're good at to serve the whole. So giving of your talents. You can give of your forgiveness. It's wonderful to be generous with forgiving. And you know what? Here's the secret. You were never harmed in the first place. It's only the part of you that is identified with conditioned reality that thinks that there's anything to forgive. And if we can get in touch with who we truly are, forgiveness comes easy and we can be generous. But your homework this week, if you're willing to accept it, is to be generous with your praise, the words you speak. Because that, you hear yourself talking, right? So you know what you're saying. Sometimes we don't. But I'm going to ask you to be aware of the words that come from your mouth this week. And I want you to be generous with your praise for your husband and your wife and your children and your grandchildren and your teachers and your students and your community members and your ministers. You can be generous. Let people know what they mean. Let people know how their light is shining on you, and you can be generous with your praise. And that leads us to the final point today. which is around cheerful expectancy. I circled around the word I wanted to use for this third homework assignment on how we can shine our light in a practical way. Optimism was what I was working with all week long. I was like, yeah, we're just going to be optimistic. And then I thought, that's a little surfacey, heady for me. I want to go a little deeper here. And I remembered this phrase from Thomas Troward. Thomas Troward was an English judge who grew up and lived and worked in India, and he was a mystic. He had a great love for the mystical traditions that came from the Indian cultures. And he was also a child of the scientific renaissance that came, and he understood the lawfulness of spiritual reality. And so a lot of the language we use around law and cause and condition and effect, that came from Troward. He influenced the Fillmores and Emily Cady and Ernest Holmes. And Troward reminds us that everything we do is about cause and effect, that we are co-creating all the time, that our thoughts are creative, and if we are thinking true thoughts based in spiritual truth, then we will begin to see the conditions of our life transform, and we will have a different effect. And so as we begin to speak the truth over our lives, over our bodies for health, over our finances for abundance, as we begin to speak healing in our relationships, the next thing we do, as Troward says, we move into a space of cheerful expectancy. It's not managing how God's going to answer your prayer. It's knowing that God is already answering that prayer. And your job is to sit back and go, yes. Because here's the deal. When you're just creating a mental and spiritual space of cheerful expectancy, you don't have to get hung up on the details and the timing. You can just let God do all that. And you create this space of such receivership. And that's your job this week. And your relationship with the world is to be in cheerful expectancy of good. How are you seeing the world? When you look around on this shared conditioned reality that we call the world, what those people are doing out there, how do you see it? Are you seeing it as hopeless? Are you feeling outraged? Are you feeling apathetic? And it's okay. I get there too. But if we're seeing with spiritual eyes, if we're shining the light of God on earth, maybe we can change that hopelessness to hope. Maybe we can change that outrage to inspired action. And maybe we can change that apathy to loving engagement. We can actually take what's in front of us and do something good to shine. In the 1400s in Florence, building the new cathedral, and they were commissioning sculptures to adorn this beautiful new cathedral, and they decided they were going to have some important figures, Moses and the like, and they wanted King David. And so they had found a big piece of marble. Someone had purchased it, and one sculptor started it and said, this is no good. This marble won't work, so I'm not going to use this piece. And you have to find somebody else. They found 2 more sculptors to have a go at it. They said, nope, this is terrible marble. It won't work. And then a young guy, 26 years old, named Michelangelo. He said, yeah, I got this. Have you seen Michelangelo's David? I don't think he has a relationship with carbohydrates. Something happened in the world of art at this time in Europe. There was a greater life and light that shone. And Michelangelo was at the leading edge of this, and he took this flawed piece of marble and created one of the great masterpieces of art of all time. And they asked him, how did he do that? He said it was simple. He saw David captive in the marble, and he began to chip away at everything that wasn't David, that he could be released. What if we could see our world that way? What if we could see the beauty? What if we could see the possibility of hope and change, transformation, and whatever in our little corner of it is ours to get our hammer and chisel and shine and be that light? Pam Lewis sent me a beautiful quote this week. Thank you, sweetheart. From Romaine Rolland. There is only one heroism in this world, to see the world as it is and to love it. That takes courage. Not to wish it away, not to put our blinders on, but to see all of the places that are in darkness and to bring our light to there. I'm going to talk to you all for a moment. These beautiful souls who are stepping into full membership in Unity of Houston, what that means. To be a part of a community that is giving you homework, that is asking you to shine the light of God. I have a vision. I mean, I've been saying for a year almost, that more than a year, something's happening here. And it's kind of unnameable. I can't tell you exactly what its shape is, but there's a feeling of expansion and possibility. And I'm seeing it begin to light people up, and people are healing and beginning to offer their gifts. And you are stepping into a powerful field today, and I want to say thank you. Really, all of us are given this opportunity to step into something together, that we become known as that shiny place over between Westheimer and Richmond off Hillcroft, that place where people are remembering the truth of spiritual reality. Things are changing. They are shining. I asked our board of directors and our staff to join with me in a 10-day miracle challenge. We started it, we finished it last Thursday, where it was just about the growth of our church. That we were for 10 days just to simply feel, accept, praise, and reveal our church growing both in financial goods, expected and unexpected streams of income, and to see our church grow in attendance in all of our services, events, classes, workshops. And it's not because we want to grow so we're part of a big church. Hey, we won. No, it's not that. There's more light. If more people are a part of what we're doing here, how many more places of influence and healing do we get to be? How many corners of Houston that are dark do we get to be in now? And that's what I'm asking you to join with me. There's so much more light we can bring when we do it together. And I'm asking you to join with me in helping to grow this ministry so that we can shine more brightly, to bring more healing. So that means, here's your homework here, go ask your friends to come to church. Invite them to a class or a workshop. Bring them to just let them know this is here. Not everybody's going to want to come, and not everybody who comes is going to stick, but there may be someone out there who is ready for a message of personal transformation and responsibility, and they're ready and you're not asking them. I'm asking you to consider helping us grow this ministry. Anytime, invite people. But in 3 weeks, I'm going to ask you to invite particularly people who maybe used to come and don't anymore for our homecoming Sunday. We're celebrating the 100 years, and anyone you know who's ever been a part of this church, and for whatever reason, they're not here, I want you to invite them back in so we can come together as a family and remember the truth of who we are so that we may shine. We heal together so we can live abundantly and help others do the same. We have our purpose statement I'd like to share with you again. We went over this in January. Can we read this together? In community, we nurture and empower each other, transforming our lives that we may serve the world. That's what we're about. That we shine that light that we are on each other. We see the truth of who we are. We're kind, we're generous, and we see absolutely knowing the transformation is coming so that we indeed may serve the world, bringing the light to all the dark places. I don't know where your marble is. I don't know what the places are that are stubborn, that are standing in the way of your light today, but I want to encourage you, lastly, don't give up. Keep practicing. My teacher would tell me, and all of her students, she would say, when it feels like nothing is changing, stay. You feel like you're just pressing your nose against the wall, you stay with your nose against the wall. You don't quit. You keep doing those prayers and meditations even though it doesn't feel like anything is changing. You keep coming to those classes even though you don't feel like you're changing anything. You keep at it Don't quit. And one day, you wake up and you're on the other side of the wall, or the wall was never even there. Don't quit before the miracle. If nobody has told you today that they love you, I love you. And if nobody else has witnessed your magnificence today, I see it. I see it. I love you. God bless you.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.